Welcome. Take a moment to let your breathing slow. Allow the noise of the present day to settle into the background. Tonight, we are traveling back thousands of years to a place that once stood at the very heart of the ancient world, Babylon. The name itself may conjure images of grand ziggurats, legendary gardens, and bustling streets. Babylon was a city of merchants and priests, scribes and laborers, kings and commoners. It was a place where the heat of the sun baked the earth into dust, and where the great Euphrates River slowly wound its way through the desert, bringing life to a place that might otherwise have been lifeless. But Babylon was not always a city of luxury. Life here was ordered, but it was also demanding. The rhythms of the day were dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, by the flow of the river, and by the decrees of kings. As you listen tonight, imagine yourself walking its narrow streets, smelling the mixture of baking clay, ripening grain, and smoke from thousands of hearths. The sounds of donkeys braying, merchants calling out their wares, and the distant chants of temple priests mingle in the air. We will spend our time together in 4 parts. First, we will immerse ourselves in the daily life of ordinary Babylonians. What they ate, what they wore, where they slept, and what they feared. Then we will explore the reign of Hammurabi, the king who gave Babylon its first great age and its famous code of laws. Next, we will drift toward the mystery of the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the centuries-long search for whether they truly existed. Finally, we will step inside the world of the elite, the priests, nobles, and rulers who shaped the destiny of this desert city. For now, let us begin where history always begins, with the ordinary, with the common, with those who lived, worked, and slept beneath the towering ziggurats. Imagine yourself waking in the pale light of dawn. You are lying on a reed mat inside a mud brick house that has been slowly warmed through the night by the desert air. The walls smell faintly of baked clay, the floor packed smooth beneath you. Outside, the city is already stirring. Roosters crow, dogs bark in the distance, and somewhere a pot clatters as someone begins to prepare the morning meal. Your home is simple. A single room if you are poor, perhaps 2 or 3 if your family is more fortunate. There is little privacy, but in the cool hours before sunrise, that is not something you think about. You stretch, splash water from a clay jar to wash the dust from your face, and step into the courtyard. The air is still, heavy with heat even at this early hour. You know it will only grow hotter as the day goes on. Babylon is a city that bakes beneath the Mesopotamian sun. The streets are narrow, some barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. Their packed earth is dry and cracked, littered with bits of straw and dung left by the animals that carry goods from one part of the city to another. Your first task is simple but vital. Fetch water. The Euphrates flows just beyond the walls, and its water is the lifeblood of the city. Men and women carry jars balanced carefully on their heads or shoulders, walking the same well-worn paths every day. You join them, feeling the strain of the weight as you return. Breakfast is small, perhaps a piece of bread made from barley, a handful of dates, and a sip of watered beer. The bread is coarse, the dates sticky with sweetness, and the beer slightly sour but safe to drink. The work of the day begins soon after. If you are a farmer, you head for the fields outside the city, where irrigation canals gleam in the morning sun. The soil is rich, but the work is endless. You bend to plant, weed, or harvest, the rhythm of your labor keeping time with the calls of others working beside you. The mud squelches between your toes, the sun climbs higher, and the air fills with the smell of wet earth and sweating bodies. If you are a craftsman, your day is spent in a workshop. Perhaps you shape clay into bricks, smooth and even, leaving them to dry in the sun. The air smells of wet clay, dust, and smoke. If you are a weaver, your fingers move quickly over the loom, turning rough fibers into cloth. And if you are a laborer, you may be sent to work on the great ziggurat that towers above the city. This massive step temple dominates the skyline. Its bricks are hauled by men like you, lifted by ropes, carried one by one in the blazing sun. Each step upward brings you closer to the gods, or so the priests say. But to you, it simply means more sweat on your brow. The day is long, and there is little rest. When the sun is at its highest, you pause in the shade of a wall or tree, drink from your jar, and eat another piece of bread. The air hums with insects. The distant sound of traders calling out their wares drifts across the fields. By the time the sun begins to set, you are exhausted. You return home as the city glows with the orange light of evening fires. You eat one final meal. More bread, perhaps a bit of onion or cheese if you are lucky. When night falls, the city grows quiet. The stars shine brightly in the clear desert sky. You lie down once more on your mat, listening to the sounds of distant dogs, the slow lapping of the river, and the occasional call of a night bird. The rhythm of life is unchanging. Every day is a balance between work, food, and rest. There is comfort in its predictability, though you know that disease, bad harvests, or the whim of the gods could take everything away in a moment. And yet, this is life. Simple, hard, steady. The life of a Babylonian is measured not in grand battles or legendary moments, but in the slow passing of days beneath the blazing sun and the watchful shadow of the ziggurat. As the rhythm of daily life continues, seasons pass and years unfold. In time, the city of Babylon grows from a small settlement into something greater, a true center of power in Mesopotamia. And at the heart of this transformation stands a single figure, a man whose name would echo across centuries, Hammurabi. Hammurabi was not born into a mighty empire. When he took the throne, Babylon was simply one of many city-states scattered across the plains of Mesopotamia. Its neighbors were rivals, sometimes allies, sometimes enemies, and its future was far from secure. Imagine yourself standing on the city walls in those early years. You would see the same familiar river, the same farmland stretching toward the horizon. But beyond the fields lay other cities, Larsa, Eshnuna, Mari, each with their own kings, priests, and armies. The air was thick with tension, alliances forming and breaking like the shifting currents of the Euphrates. Hammurabi's rule was long, stretching over 4 decades. He was patient. His power grew slowly, step by step, not in a single burst of conquest. First he secured Babylon's defenses. Then he improved its irrigation systems, ensuring that crops could grow even in dry years. The canals filled with life-giving water, feeding the fields and strengthening the city's people. Gradually, through careful diplomacy and calculated campaigns, Hammurabi expanded his territory. One by one, neighboring cities fell under Babylon's influence. It was not a sudden conquest, but a process, a slow tightening of control, until eventually Babylon stood as the dominant power in southern Mesopotamia. But Hammurabi is best remembered not for his conquests, but for his laws. Imagine yourself standing in the city, a central square, on the day his stele, a tall stone monument, was unveiled. The air is warm, the crowd murmurs quietly, and there it stands, a great black stone, its surface carved with hundreds of lines of cuneiform script. At the top, a relief shows Hammurabi receiving the rod and ring of justice from the sun god Shamash, a powerful image that ties the king's authority directly to the divine. These were Hammurabi's laws, nearly 300 of them, carefully inscribed for all to see. They covered nearly every aspect of life. If a man built a house and it collapsed, killing the owner, the builder could be put to death. If a merchant was cheated, the wrongdoer would pay back twice what was taken. If a man put out the eye of another, his own eye would be put out. You may have heard the phrase, an eye for an eye. It comes from here, from these very laws. The code was harsh by modern standards, but it brought order. In a world where justice often depended on personal revenge or the will of local rulers, Hammurabi's code offered something new, a sense of consistency. Everyone, from farmer to noble, was bound by the same set of rules, and everyone could look upon the stone and see them for themselves. Even the way the laws were written feels slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. Each begins with the same steady pattern. If this happens, then this shall be done. It is a rhythm, like the rhythm of life itself, turning each judgment into something almost ceremonial. Hammurabi's legacy lasted long after his death. For centuries, Babylon remained a center of power, trade, and learning. And though the stele itself would one day be taken from the city, captured as a prize of war and hidden away, the words remained. They survive to this day, allowing us to read the thoughts of a man who lived nearly 4,000 years ago. As the sun sets over Babylon, you can picture Hammurabi in his palace, his city safe, his laws engraved for all time. The people return to their homes, as they always do. The rhythm of life continues, but now it is guided by the rules of a king who believed that order, not chaos, should shape the destiny of his people. Would you like me to continue with segment 3, the calm, wonder-filled exploration of the mystery of the Hanging Gardens, their beauty, and the centuries-long debate over whether they really existed? Even as Hammurabi's laws shaped the rhythm of Babylonian life, the city itself continued to grow. Centuries passed. Kings rose and fell. The bricks of old buildings crumbled, were swept away, and rebuilt anew. Babylon became larger, richer, and more magnificent with each generation. It is in this later age that we hear of something truly extraordinary, a garden unlike any other, a wonder so beautiful it was said to be one of the greatest achievements of the ancient world. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The very name suggests something dreamlike. Imagine yourself standing at the base of this structure, if it ever truly existed. The air is heavy with the perfume of flowering vines, wet earth, and ripening fruit. Above you, tier upon tier of greenery rises skyward, each level supported by stone arches. Water trickles down from hidden channels, sparkling in the sunlight, feeding the trees and blossoms that grow where desert dust should have been. The city around you is hot and dry, the air thick with dust. Yet here, in the shadow of the gardens, there is shade, coolness, and the sound of running water. Birds flutter between the branches, and somewhere quietly, a gardener tends to the plants. The ancient writers tell us that these gardens were built by a king, perhaps Nebuchadnezzar II, perhaps another. Some say they were built for a queen who missed the green hills of her homeland. Others suggest they were built to display the might of the king himself, a statement that even nature could be bent to his will. And yet, the mystery remains. Were they truly in Babylon at all? Modern archaeologists have searched for them. They have dug through layers of earth, searching for foundations that could support such a massive structure. And though they have found walls, irrigation systems, and fragments of palaces, the gardens themselves remain elusive. Some scholars now wonder if the Hanging Gardens might never have been in Babylon at all, but in another city, Nineveh, far to the north, built by another king entirely. It is a quiet puzzle, one that has lasted for centuries. Perhaps the gardens were real, and their bricks have simply been lost to time. Perhaps they were a story told and retold until they became more myth than memory. As you think of them, imagine not a single solid image, but a shifting vision, part history, part dream. Tiered terraces heavy with greenery, the smell of wet leaves, the soft sound of water falling from level to level. A hidden paradise in the middle of the desert, built for love or power, for memory or glory. Whether real or imagined, the Hanging Gardens remain a symbol of human desire to create beauty in a place where nature would not normally allow it. They remind us that even in the dust and heat of Babylon, someone once dreamed of shade, of water, and of green growing things. Imagine yourself walking away from the shaded calm of the imagined gardens and into the heart of Babylon's royal quarter. The noise of the marketplace fades. The streets here are wider, the walls cleaner, their bricks newer and straighter. Before you stands a massive palace complex, its gateways framed with carved lions and bulls. Guards stand silently at their posts, spears gleaming in the sun. Beyond them, life slows to a deliberate, measured rhythm, the rhythm of power. Inside, the air feels cooler. The walls are painted in deep blues and golds. The floors are swept smooth. Courtyards open to the sky, where date palms grow in orderly rows. Servants move quietly, carrying water, food, and tablets of clay filled with cuneiform writing. Here you are among the highest members of Babylonian society, the king's court, the great priests, and the nobles who advised them. Their days are filled with ceremony. At dawn, priests perform rituals to honor the gods, offering incense and chants to ensure the favor of the divine. Scribes stand nearby, carefully recording omens, eclipses, and the movements of the stars. Every detail matters. A single wrong word, a single missed gesture, might be seen as an offense to the gods. The king himself is both ruler and servant, the earthly representative of the gods, yet also bound by tradition to feed, clothe, and honor the statues of the deities each day. Meals among the elite are quiet, formal occasions. Picture a long, low table surrounded by cushioned seats. Bowls of dates, figs, and roasted lamb are placed carefully in front of guests. Beer, thick and slightly sweet, is poured into tall cups. Conversation is low and respectful. Politics, omens, the state of the canals. Outside the palace walls, the city bustles with life. Merchants haggle over copper and wool, farmers lead goats to market, children splash in irrigation ditches. The contrast is striking. Beyond the walls, noise, dust, and labor. Inside, order and silence. And yet, the lives of king and commoner are connected. The harvests that feed the palace come from the fields outside the city. The canals that water the crops are maintained by the labor of ordinary citizens. The king's power depends on the steady turning of this great wheel, planting, growing, harvesting, taxing. From the ziggurat, that massive stepped temple rising above the city, priests look down on all of it. The structure dominates the skyline, a reminder to every Babylonian of the gods' presence and of their own place in the order of things. As night falls, oil lamps are lit in the palace halls, casting long, soft shadows on the walls. The city outside quiets. The air cools. From the ziggurat, chants and music drift down to the streets below, a lullaby to a city that never truly sleeps. And so Babylon's elite end their day, surrounded by wealth but also by duty, caretakers of a city that has endured for centuries. And now we step back. The sounds of the chants fade, the palace grows still, the streets of Babylon empty until only the faint rustle of the desert wind remains. You have walked through the crowded markets, stood before the palace gates, and glimpsed the wonders that may have once existed. You have seen how the ordinary and the powerful, the dusty and the magnificent, the real and the legendary, all blended together to form the city we know as Babylon. Tonight, as you lie in your bed, you are far from the hot sun, the dry wind, and the call of temple bells. The struggles of ancient farmers, the decisions of kings, and the mysteries of the hanging gardens belong to another time. But the rhythm of their lives, the rising of the sun, the tending of the fields, the slow work of building and rebuilding a city, echoes softly across the centuries, a reminder of the countless generations who lived, worked, dreamed, and slept long before us. Take a slow breath. Let the image of the ziggurat, rising calmly against the starlit sky, stay with you for a moment longer. And then let it go. The past is quiet now. The city sleeps, And so, perhaps, should you.